Grace and peace, St. Luke's beloved community. I am very pleased with the way that our strategic plan, especially around reconnecting on Sunday morning, is being implemented. I'm encouraged by the Sunday school, and we have about 18 with more expected young people. Confirmation started this past Sunday. Jerry says that there were about 16 in the confirmation class. And we began on Sunday morning, this past Sunday, the adult forum on the study of the book of Luke. I want actually this video to be a means of encouraging you to connect with Scripture regularly. And we have several excellent opportunities to do that. We have the Saturday morning men's Bible study. We have the Thursday noon Bible study, which has become very vibrant and which brings together around the reading and studying of God's Word many diverse social locations and contexts and worldviews, so that we really get a rich encounter with Scripture every Thursday at noon. And you can always get that link. What I want to do today is share with you something about the Bible and how it came to us. And this is something that was shared this past Sunday at the beginning of our adult forum on the book of Luke. So I want to read for you and with you. Oh, and by the way, the other really good way to be into Scripture is also your own reading of Scripture. Many of you I know have a regular rotation of Scripture passages and verses and times, devotional times, and I want to encourage that as well. Luke chapter 1 tells us how the book of Luke was written and gives us an idea of actually how the Bible came to be. Since many have undertaken to set down an orderly account of the events that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed on to us by those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. I too decided, after investigating everything carefully from the very first, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the truth concerning things about which you have been instructed. Okay. The eyewitness accounts as they've been handed on to me, Luke's talking about. So let me give you an example. So let's say on my way to church this past Sunday, I was stopped at a light at Harlem and Toohey, and right in front of me, a guy on a bicycle gets hit by a car. The guy on the bicycle flies over the hood and boom, is lying there on the street. People come and rush, and people come up to me because I'm sitting right there, and then the police come. And of course, the question everybody is asking is, what happened? So for the police, by the way, this is hypothetical. So the police ask me what happened, and they take my report. Well, I saw this guy, and so on and so forth. Then I make my way to church, and Beth Ann and Sylvia are there and notice the look on my face and say, what happened? And I tell them. And then I call my wife and say, honey, you'll never guess what happened. Well, by the time I've told this story to a few people, it begins to take a form, so we don't leave out details. And actually, that's how many of the stories in the Bible came to us. These stories of what God did, these stories of what Jesus did, were told and retold. And by the time they came to St. Luke, they were in a form. They were already making Jesus present through the telling of the story. And in the Old Testament, these stories about what God has done in history were told from generation to generation. The Seder, the child's question, why is this night like any other night? And the answer is when God saved me through the Exodus. And so liturgy initially was the gathering together to tell these stories about what God had done through the generations. And for Luke, what the eyewitnesses have seen that Jesus had done. And here's the thing. So Luke is gathering these stories. And the words, as they were handed on to me, that Greek word is paradidomai, which means to hand over, a hand me down. St. Paul would use the same form. I delivered to you what was first handed to me, that on the night in which he was betrayed, Jesus Christ took bread, etc., etc. So the word paradidomai, paradosis, means to be handed over, to be handed down, to be given from one to another. And the Latin word for that, traducere, to hand over, is where we get the word tradition. So Luke's gathering the tradition of the church. But it's not just ancient history, because Luke actually believes that in the power of the Holy Spirit, telling the story about what Jesus did is as if Jesus was in the midst doing it. And Luke also wrote the book of Acts. And so for Luke, he has the ascension at the end of his gospel and the ascension at the beginning of the book of Acts. There's a bridge. That in the power of the Holy Spirit, what Jesus did in these stories in the Gospel of Luke, the church will do. So the church, the body of Christ, continues these stories. And we are eyewitnesses of these stories even today in the power of the Holy Spirit, as we each give our own witness and testimony. So the other important word besides paradosis, handed over, tradition, is Luke says that I'm gathering these so that you may know what Jesus did and accomplished. But the Greek is actually that you might have, and the Greek word is asphaleia. It's been handed down, and I'm writing this orderly account so you may have asphaleia. That's assurance. That's the gospel connecting with you and with me. In other words, it's not just history, it's gospel. The story is told so that in a way it can connect with my life, with your life, with my faith, with your faith. And that's what happens every time we open God's words. It may not always feel it with every time we're in the scripture, but it's a cumulative effect of being in the Word. As St. Paul said, abiding in the Word, so that what Jesus did, Jesus continues to do to help us believe. So hope to see you around God's Word.